אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה.
Welcome to the weekly Torah perspective, where we look at Parshas Noach, and we will look at aspects of this structure, the table, the ark, that was the means by which Noach and his family transited from one world to another one. A failed world, a disintegrated world, and what was their survival mechanism? What was the unit of this ark, of this teva, of this box? Teva doesn't mean ship, it's not a ship, it's a box. What kind of structure was this? And then we will also pay attention to the end of the Seder, where we have another world that disintegrated in a different way, the world of the tower. And all this is a prelude to what will start in the Seder of next week, when out of these two destructions, the destruction of the Mabul and the destruction of the tower, the flood and the tower, out of that emerged a man Avram. Okay, so let's kick it up. The first three psukim in the Seder are like this. Eile told us Noach. Noach ish tzadik tomim hoyo b'darosov, es ho Elokim his halech Noach. These are the generations, it's usually translated, or these are the ways in which from Noach came something. Toldos is a word that is related to loledes, to give birth, yeled, a child, Vlad, an embryo or a fetus. Toldos has to do with a development, a coming into being, and here this Eile Toldos Noach. The expression Eile Toldos occurs 4 times in Sefer Bereshis. And 6 times you have an expression Ve'ele Toldos. The 4 times that it says Eile Toldos correspond to the 4 letters of God's name, which the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Hey Vav and the Hey, is also an expression that has to do with being and causing to be, right? It's usually interpreted as hoyo hauve vehiye umahave kol havayos, meaning was, is, shall be. Doesn't mean he was in the past, he is now in the future, and he will be he is now in the present, and he will be in the future. It doesn't mean that. It means he is being itself. Umahave kol havayos, and anything that is, or that has came into being through him, right? And of course, you can see the connection with Toldos, Taldas is that word that has to do with development and bringing forth. And that is, so Sefer Bereshis is punctuated with these 4 expressions of Ele Taldas. The first one is Ele Taldas Odom, right? In last week's Seder. Okay. Ele Taldas Noach. Noach ish tzadik tomim hoyo b'darasov. It sketches, it doesn't say Vayihi Noach ish tzadik tomim b'darasov. No, it says Noach ish tzadik tomim hoyo b'darasov, sketching a situation. Introducing Noach. Who is this Noach? He is 2 things. He is a tzaddik and he is a tomim. A tzaddik, usually translated as a righteous man. What tzaddik actually precisely means is not so easy to define. Tzedakah means living a correct life. He was a tzaddik, and he was also a tomim. He was perfect. Well, Chazal make a comment. There are 2 different opinions. He was relatively to the standards of his generation. You can call him a tzaddik, but in a generation of Avraham, he wouldn't have meant anything. And the other interpretation is no. If he already in this generation managed to be a tzaddik, imagine what he could have been if the circumstances would have been more favorable to him. Right? Be that as it may. Now is the important expression. Es ho Elokim hisalach Noach. Noach walked with ha Elokim, with the Godhead. Right? Elokim is a name that is used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the first chapter in Bereshis. It's the name by which he created the world. It's a name that expresses his total mastery over nature. It also expresses his attribute of justice. It's Midas Hadin. Midas Hadin not in the sense of somebody who comes and he comes there to punish you. No, it is the name that expresses that something that some people call karma, right? That actions have consequences, and therefore you cannot live in the world as if you're the boss because someone else is the boss. As for Elokim hisalach Noach. Noach apparently was somebody who recognized that he wasn't alone, but that he had the Creator to reckon with. As for Elokim hisalach Noach. Again, it doesn't say Vayishalech Noach es Elokim, and Noach walked with God. That's not what it says. It says that he was someone who walks with God. Right? It's not that we find him here active in his life and we observe that he is walking with God. No, it defines who is Noach. It defines what kind of man he is. In other words, even when he makes a mistake, when he does something wrong, he is still Eser Elokim hisalach Noach, meaning he still reckons with the fact that he has to take responsibility for his actions. Vayoled Noach shlosha bonim eshem eschom ve'esyofes. And Noach, this is a narrative expression. Vayoled, right? It doesn't say the Haulit and he had begotten children. No, he was somebody who built a family. He was somebody who built a family and he went ahead and did build that family. But in that same period that he built the family, the next pasuk, the narrative continues and it says, "Vatishoches ha'oretz lifnei Elokim," and the world or the earth or the land became corrupted. It's again a narrative and therefore a progressive development Yeah? Vatishoches. And it gradually deteriorated and became corrupted. Lifnei Elokim, before God, meaning that if the world deteriorates and disintegrates and society breaks down, it is Lifnei Elokim. God is watching. God is seeing it. Vatimolei ha'oretz chomos. And the land, the earth, the world was filled with chomos. Hamas, we don't have to explain what Hamas means, whatever the acronym is in Arabic. In Hebrew, it means violence. It means violence, but it's a violence that is rooted in corruption. It's rooted in corruption. It's the result of Vatishoches ha'oretz lifnei Elokim. Because society is disintegrated, therefore Chomos got a chance and filled the vacuum. If the society breaks down and corrupts itself and abandons the godly values, abandons godly morality, it is not that the world becomes devoid of morals. No, there is a different moral that takes its place. There is a different zeitgeist. There's a different set of values that is a value of chomos, of violent criminality, violent corruption. Okay, that is the scene that is being depicted. And we know the story. God decides to destroy the world. God decides to destroy the world. God didn't command a group of people and say, go and kill the corrupt lot. That's not how God destroyed the world. He destroyed the world by pressing the reset button. If you read the story, you know, the fact that the world was destroyed through water, let's not forget that water is the uncreated matter that we read about in the first 3 psukim of Parshas Bereshit, right? Ruach Elokim merachevs al penei ha'moyim. Nobody ever said how that water was created. It is like the raw material. We spoke about it earlier, that mayim is a plural. It is actually a dual. Things that end in the ending ayim always means 2 things. Regel is the leg, raglaim is the 2 legs, ozen is the ear, oznaim is 2 ears. So mayim is also 2. 2 of what? 2 of mem. Right? Mem ayim. Right? 2 of mem. Well, mem itself is 2. It's a mem and a mem. And the word mem means mayim. So there's water all around here. But because it's a dual, it means there are 2 sides to it. And we see that in this week's Saturday as well, that there are 2 sides. There's the water above and the water below. And when God created the world, he made a separation between the waters above and the waters below. Meaning between the chaos above and the chaos below, God created for us a living space in which we could develop, in which we could become what potentially we are. Namely, creatures in the image of God that can bring the divine presence into the world. Is a little sliver of land between what's up there and what's down here. So rather than sending the squads, HaKadosh Baruch Hu pressed the reset button, and the water from above and the water from below both came. You read the description. The gates of the depths were opened and the rain came down. 2 things. In other words, that little sliver of livable ecosystem that he created for us was taken away from us. Why? Because it was corrupted. And how do you survive that? What future is there for humanity when humanity just spoils the chances that it gets, just doesn't care anymore for the environment. Yeah, sure, they have recycling bits. That's what they have, or they tax your car away. Instead of sitting down and reasoning out and trying to reach out to each other to come to a joint awareness that we're together in one single boat, and that if there is a hole in the bottom of the boat, we all drown. This idea that we have to find each other in order to together try to make the best of that little sliver of possibility that is between the chaos above and the chaos below. Instead of that, we decide to fight each other and fill the world with Hamas, fill the world with violence. So how do you survive that? So again, Hashem gave the prescription, and he instructed Noach to build a table. And it is not just a table, it's a very special, very specific structure. And you read in the 15th pasuk, in the sixth chapter, you read the exact dimensions of the table. Some around here will remember this is one of the first talks that I gave in Canary Wharf in the end of the 90s. And I'll repeat it, refresh your memory, because it is absolute dynamite. So there are three measures. It is 300 amos, 300 cubits long. It is 50 cubits wide, and it is 30 cubits high. 300 by 50 by 30. Those measures are three Hebrew letters. The 30 is the Lamed, the 300 is the Shin, and the 50 is the Nun. Those are the three root letters of the word Loshan. Language, tongue. And the word Tevo itself means not only box, it also means word. A Tevo, when we say Roshe Tevos, we mean an acronym. The first letters of a word are called the Roshe Tevos. So Tevo means a word. So we have a word with the dimensions of language. That's the mechanism. It just baffles the mind. This is the mechanism by which we have a chance to build a new world with language. It's perhaps not coincidental that the big technological development of our day is large language models, and that people who really look behind what is going on with this technology discover that so many things are actually language. Mathematics is language, and physics is language, and ecology is language, right? How species live together in an ecological system is by hearing each other's signals and adjusting their own behavior in reaction to the signals that they get from their environment. That is language. When you communicate, when you find a common language, it doesn't have to be words, it doesn't have to be letters. It is communication and exchange of information. Far more important than, we know it, far more important than the hardware of your phone is all the communications that you do with that thing. I mean, the same thing that we carry today in our pocket used to be only on desks, and the phone bit of it had a dial, but it was still the same basic facilitator of a communication. When you have a communication, you better watch that you speak a pure language. that you say what you mean, that you do not corrupt the language. So this box is this box that means word, that has the dimensions of language, is the guardian of something that will enable mankind to continue, to make a start. And of course, if you read how after the flood the world became dry, and then vegetation, and there are animals, of course, the animals that he took with him. There are parallels between the creation story and the recreation story of this parsha, of this Seder. So it's a new creation. Now, it doesn't stop there. The hidden messages, the codes that are being conveyed here. There is a very puzzling pasuk, a few puzzling psukim, and a very, very mysterious Rashi. So first, the puzzling psukim. On the height of the flood, we read the following. V'hamayim gavru ma'od ma'od al ha'oretz. And the waters became overpowering to an extreme degree on the world. Vaychusu kol heholim hagvoim. And all the high mountains were covered. Asher tachas hashemoim, which were under the heavens. So it's almost the under the heavens. So it's still part of this sliver, right? But the highest point of it. The waters came above that. How much? The next pasuk says, Chamesh esrei amo, 15 cubits, milemalo, from above, gavru hamoim, the waters were overpowering, vaychusu hehorim, and the mountains were covered. So there we have it. You have you have, say, ground level, and then you have the mountains, and then the waters were 15 amas above those mountains, right? You have the picture in your mind? All right. Later on we read, Vatonach hatevo b'chodesh hashvi b'shiva oso yom l'chodesh al horei arorot. And the box, the table box, came to rest in the 7th month, on the 17th of the month, on the mountains which are called Arorot, whatever they are. A Rashi, the Rashi on that pasuk. Rashi says, Mikan atolomed, from here you can learn, Shehoiso hateva mushukas b'mayim yud aleph amon. From here you can learn, you must learn, that the table, this box, was underwater, meshukas, sticking into the water, 11 amos. And Rashi makes the calculation why this is. And it's the weirdest of all calculations. Because Rashi calculates the rate of ascent of the water in terms of how many days it will take for 1 amo of water to arise, to go up. And you can read it yourself. I'm not going through it. It's a calculation, but it's a very intricate calculation. If you follow Rashi, it's inescapable. And you come to the conclusion of the following picture. That the mountains themselves were only 15 amos high. It's just, if anything tells you that these stories should not be read like some kind of physics textbook or even a history book, it's not that. It is that very language, that very word that carries you from one world to another is encoded in the Torah itself. The Torah itself is that box. The Torah itself is that reservoir of divine words that can carry you from one world to the next, even when the world around you lies in ruins. Now, it becomes even more intricate because at the highest point of the flood, you had 11 amos of the table sticking into the water, so that the bottom of the table was a certain measure above the top of the mountains. The whole measure is 15 amos above the top of the mountains of the water. 11 of it is table, and 4 of it is the space between the bottom of the table and the top of the mountains. Right? And then you have the 15 amos of the mountains. Now, then the table goes down 4 amos and comes to rest with its bottom on top of the mountains. Right? The water is still 11 amos above the right? So you have a picture of 15 amos mountains, 11 amos table, and the 4 amos that it came down are now on top of the table. The 15 are the Yud and the Hey of the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and 11 are the Vav and the Hey. Now, rewind a little. Look at the very height of the Mabul. The height of the Mabul, you have 15 amos here, 4 amos water, 11 amos table. So in total, you have 15 plus 15 is 30. And then there is the bit that sticks out of the water, because the entire table is 30 high, minus 11 is 19. 30 plus 19 is 49. That's the 7 times 7, which of course is a significant number. But there's a secret. There's another Ammon on top of the 49, of which we read earlier in the Sefer, because the table was not a square box. It was a rectangular basis and a pyramid structure. It was a pyramid. But it was a pyramid that didn't finish at the top, had a hole at the top. The last ammo was missing. As it says in the Pasuk, "Wel ammo tegeleno." You shall finish it off towards an ammo. It's a very obscure expression. But that's the 50th. It isn't there, but it's called V'tzauatas the table. You shall make a shining light for the table. And the interpretations are there was some kind of miraculous light there, or maybe it was a skylight. Whatever it is, it was illuminating. That missing table, that is actually not in this world. That is the 50th, which is beyond this world. It's the 50th of the 50th day on which the Torah was given. That 50th was the light that enabled mankind to survive in the table. The table, which means word, dimensions of language, under the light that comes from above this world. Not only that, when the table was on top of that mountain, you had the 30 of the table, and the 15 of the mountains is 45, which is the gematria of Odom. Aleph, Dalet, Mem, 45, of which 26, the 15 and 11 are the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's the 19 that fills it up until 45? That's the gematria of Chaval, of Reuben. In other words, Ele told us Noach, how do we survive in this world? By setting up families, by having our values preserved in this world, by having families in purity, families in moralities, families that build on the future by loving our children. What's the opposite of loving your children? That is exposing your children to the dangers of war and putting them as human shields in front of you. By using your children as propaganda material in order to generate PR. That is what Timolei Hororitz Chomos. The world was filled with corruption. Corruption when human life itself, human life, not my life, not your life, their life is corrupted. Because they don't build on the future. Because there is no Taldos there. There is no bringing into being. Okay. That's the picture that we get from how this family, Noach with his wife and his 3 sons with their wives, and the animals with their partners, were preserved to come out on the other side and rebuild the world by having families. The end of the Seder gives you the entire spiel with the families that came from Shem, from Ham, from... The world was populated again. And then the second tragedy happened. And that's expressed in the words that begin the story of the tower, where it says, "Vayihi chol haaretz sofa achas," and the entire world. It's actually, now that I see the pasuk, Eretz is feminine. It should have been Vatihi chol haaretz. It doesn't say Vatihi chol haaretz. It says Vayihi, and it was, whatever the it was a situation of Kol haaretz of Achas. The whole world, one language. Well, you would say, thank God the world has found a common language. You would be mistaken. That language was being used to exclude God from this world, not to include him. To build a society with a technology that made everybody subservient to the building of a name for man himself. It's always man who builds. You know how many cities are named after people? Washington D.C. and Alexandria and Constantinople. And the very first city that was built on earth was built by Cain for his son Hanoch. It says he built a city and he called it Hanoch after his son. Right? This idea of building cities as a monument to the greatness of man, it's never woman, by the way. It's always man. He wants to leave a name for himself on this world. Women are better than we are. I'm telling you, women are better. If you think of, we're talking about families, we're talking about children. Well, we all love our children. We all love our children. We all would defend our children and protect them against any harm. But if you think of somebody who lays down his life for his child, you think of a mother protecting her child. You're thinking of a mother who, when they come to harm her child, she throws herself on the child and will protect the child with her own body, because she is the body out of which this child was born. I mean, she is the Taldos of the world. She is the Eim Habonim. She is the mother. The Akeres Habai is the cornerstone, the root on which the entire family is rooted. So honor your wives, honor your mothers, honor your daughters. Protect them because they protect you. This society of the tower and the city was another aberration of mankind, and United Nations that was there to justify man's own supremacy over God's morality. And then, at the end, we're introduced to Avram. Terach, his 3 sons, Avram. Read it. Read the end of the Seder, because we have this tendency to look at, when it comes to Lech Lecho, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls Avram, God calls Abraham and says, go to the land that I will show you. But who is this Abraham, right? Who is he? Well, he's being introduced at the end of this week's Saturday. And how is he introduced? He's introduced by a family, as coming from a family where tragedy has struck. The youngest son, Horon, died while his father was still alive. And immediately thereafter, we read that Avram and his brother Noach married 2 ladies. One was called Milcah and the other one was called Yiscah. They were the daughters of Horon. They were the sisters of Lot. And Yiscah is Sorrow. Yiscah is the same person as Sorrow. Yiscah means princess. Sorrow means also princess. It's the same name. So what do we see here? We see that the future of mankind, literally the future of mankind, is now vested in one man who is going to build a family. And he builds a family that's not even for himself. He builds, it's a kind of a Yibum, right? He continues his dead brother's heritage by marrying his niece, the daughter. And it immediately says that this woman that he married was barren. She didn't have children. So you see somebody who, against all odds, when the cards are stacked against him, says, I don't care. I know what my duty is. So the Eile told us Noach become the Eile told us Avram. And from there, the story of the Jewish people starts. And we are part of that story, and whatever happens in our generation, we have exactly the same task: to build families, to preserve the light that comes from that 50th Amma, that comes from above this world, and to live inside that word and that language and keep it pure, not as the lying language that we hear around us. Ignore it. Don't even listen to it. Just preserve your own language. Speak the truth. Do it calmly. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by speculations. I don't know what will be tomorrow. I know that the 50th Amma, that the light from above is shining. And it was at the height of the flood that light reached that 50th Amma. At the height of the destruction. That's when it was shining. So, be of good courage, build families, dance on chasnas, dance on weddings, celebrate births, and take your revenge on our murderers by building families. It's the only way in which we triumph. Achenu kol Yisrael, hanesunim b'tzol v'shivyo, hamokem yirachem aleim, yishmereim hashto ba'agolo b'zman kol.
אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו כל בית ישראל, כל בית ישראל הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם עליהם, יוציאם מצרה לרווחה, ומאפלה לאורה ומשעבוד לגאולה, שתה בגלה ובזמן קריב. כן, המקום ירחם עליהם, יוציאם מצרה לרווחה, ומאפלה לאורה ומשעבוד לגאולה, שתה בגלה ובזמן קריב, שתה בגלה ובזמן